Hello, it's time for lunchtime live stream. In case you don't know me, I am Megan and I have a business called Hipstitch Academy and I teach people how to sew. And every single week I go live here on YouTube and do a free sewing lesson. Basically, it's going to be 1 hour. We're going to work on this wrap top from Peppermint Magazine, which has a ton of free patterns. We always do free patterns in the free sewing lesson. So all you have to do is come up with the fabric. The pattern is free, the sewing lesson instruction is free, and you just need to get some fabric for whatever project we're doing. I always say what the projects are ahead of time so you can prepare. And then I also wanted to tell you what else we do. We also do sewing lessons on Zoom. So basically we're taking projects similar to this, but they're usually indie patterns, and we teach them, or well, Rachel and I have 2 instructors here at Hipstitch Academy, so you either get me or you get Rachel, and we teach how to make sewing projects, and then we also just teach you how to sew. We have some beginner sewing classes as well. This project was one of the me-made wardrobe classes that I taught last week and the week before. This is the Arlo jogger. No, the Arlo jacket. Sorry, I'm getting it mixed up with the brassy joggers. The Arlo track jacket from Friday Pattern Company. So I taught this one last week and thought I would wear my finished track jacket for the lunchtime live stream. Let me just go over to YouTube real quick and see. I think it's working. Okay, awesome. So yeah, this week we have, tonight I'm teaching the Dress Lab, which is a 3-part class on sewing the closet core Elodie dress. And then tomorrow night, for part of the Me Made Wardrobe class, I'm teaching the Sagebrush top, which is a top that I have made far too many of. So it's definitely part of my own Me Made wardrobe. So anyway, that's what we do. If you need to find the website, I put some links down below. Hopefully you're watching this live, but if not, you're watching it in a replay. Welcome. Glad you're here. Hopefully you'll take some classes, and if there are things that you want us to sew, let me know. Shoot me an email or put it in the comments, or get in touch with me however you feel like you want to do that. And we'll try to put it on the schedule. If you want to see the schedule, the link is down below, but it's super easy. It's hipstitch.co/lunchbreak. Alrighty. So let's get going with the peppermint wrap top. I mean, the In the Folds wrap top, published and put out into the world by Peppermint Magazine. We love Peppermint Magazine because they have a ton of free sewing classes. All right, I will stop talking and I will put the overhead camera on. I have cut out all my pattern pieces, and I'm going to do a little cheating with the cutting today because it's a very wide piece that if we sew 2 pieces together, it's going to be just fine. So you'll see what I'm talking about. So just to kind of go over those pieces, we've got a front that looks a little wacky because it has that wrap top. We've got the back, which is a full piece, which is sort of weird because it can easily be cut on the fold, which is how I'm going to be cutting mine. And then we've got some sleeves. The adjustment I'm going to make on the sleeves, only because I'm going to run out of fabric as usual, is I'm going to make the sleeves shorter. I'm going to put them on there, but make them more like a capped sleeve rather than like super long like this. So I'm just going to cut them off. So that's really easy to do. These are all modifications because I have a limited supply of fabric and I am big on using the fabric that I have and hope you are too. Let's do this. Okay. So I'm going to start with the front, as I told you, and I'm going to, so this front piece, to kind of show you the whole piece, is like ridiculously big, right? And so what I'm going to do is actually right where I taped it, I'm just going to untape it. And I'm going to make these two separate pieces. So I'll just fold my tape in, place it on, and now you'll see it fits on my 45-inch wide fabric, which makes me very happy. I don't have to fold the fabric some funky way to try to get it to fit. It actually wouldn't have even fit if I had opened it all the way up, because right now it's doubled because I need two of these. Anyway, so I'm going to cut two of these, and then this was the little extension piece. I'm going to cut two of those in a second. So that's what's happening with this. I should have been pinning while I was blabbing, but I didn't. So don't worry, I won't pin a ton. Really, with pinning too, I see a lot of students that I teach really like go a little nuts with pinning. I'm not flat under here. Let's see if I can get that. Ugh, I've got like a little. I'm gonna fix this, or I'm gonna get a weird shaped. There we go. So when you're doubling up your fabric and you're folding it, just make sure that everything's flat on not only the layer in the top that you see, but also on the bottom. So that's what I just did, is I fixed that. So then back to what I was saying about pinning. You know, there are things that I would say require more pins, but I'm using like this really easy to work with quilters cotton, so 5 pins it is. All right, so I'm going to keep going, making sure my fabric is still doubled, and actually that off, put it aside. Other thing is, like, I washed my fabric. I thought I had ironed the edges, but apparently the edges are still really wrinkled, but that's okay. I'm just gonna do this, get everything to line up, get everything to flatten out. And once again, I'm gonna adjust this back piece, because the piece that came with this download that we love is actually the whole thing. And I have my fabric folded here. So I'm gonna fold my pattern and put it on the fold. But the other adjustment I'm gonna make is I'm gonna make the fold so that I have a narrower piece. So my piece that's extra is all one piece, and I'm not wasting. So I move my fold over to here, and I think I'm gonna even go. I'm a little crazy when it comes to saving fabric. Okay, that's good. So there's the fold of my fabric, and I'll pin. what'll happen if I pin this, if YouTube will allow me to make that bigger. We shall see. Ooh, it does. That's awesome. Okay. So there's my back cut on the fold. And I'll just keep that on there for now. And then what do I have left? I have the sleeve piece. So this is the reason I'm shortening the sleeve. Let's see. Okay, I think I'm going to do the same thing and cut it right where the two pattern pieces are taped together. When I do modifications like this, I always keep that extra with the pattern. So if I decide to make it again and I want to make it a longer sleeve, I have this piece. So I'll hold on to that. And I'm just going to put it right here at the end. So line that up. At the end, stick a couple pins in and cut. So the purpose of this sewing class or sewing lesson on YouTube is to kind of go through something a little bit quickly. I sort of feel like I rushed on this sometimes, but it's because I really want to show you as much as I possibly can, and we only have an hour together every week. So if I'm cutting fast and my cutting looks a little bit crazy, I'd like to say that's why, but it's not, because that's the way I would cut anyway. So yeah. Okay, so here's what I have left over. And don't forget that I decided to adjust, and still it's not even going to fit. So we're going to actually piece it into 3 pieces. There we go. We're all patchwork together, but I mean, seriously, like, you're not going to be able to tell. Oh, not the other thing is this. Let me cut that right. Oh, yeah. That was the part that was underneath. So I can actually go a little bit more. There we go. And then I still have this little piece too. So I'm going to do the same thing. And you can leave a seam allowance, which I'm probably going to do, so that when I sew these pieces all together, there's a little bit of extra. So there's my extra seam allowance right here. And then over on this side, there'll be a little extra seam allowance as well. Now there's a fold on this side, don't forget. So we want to make that into 2 pieces. Okay, so there's the other part of the wrap front, and we still have this. So let's see where it will fit on. It's not going to fit on that. I'll get rid of that. Let's see, it'll fit on this right over here. Great. I'll make sure this all makes sense when we're putting it together if you're confused, but I'm adding a seam allowance. This side can be cut flush. And since this is the end, this can be cut flush as well. So the seam allowance only has to be over here. Just to review what is happening. Let me turn it the other way. There. There. And the front. Okay, and I haven't cut my front, so let me do that. And then I'm going to sew all these three together. So no extra seam allowance except for right here. Give it about a 1/2 inch just to sew those pieces together. And then everything else, oops, I'm in the way. Flush with the edge of the pattern. Okay. So here's my front. And if you were lucky enough to have wide fabric, you don't have to do this step. But I thought it would be a worthwhile one to show you how to do because it does save a lot of fabric. So I'm big on the zero waste. So there, and then this one's going over there. And yes, I'm not gonna have zero waste, but I'm gonna try for as little waste as possible. So let's start with the little pieces and sew those together. So we've got a little 1/2 inch seam allowance extra. So I'm gonna put, so we haven't even started on the instructions yet. I'm still just putting my front pieces together, okay? I'm not gonna worry about that one for right now. So I'm sewing a 1/2 inch seam allowance here, and then same thing. Let's remove the pattern here. And same thing. Right sides together. Sew with a 1/2 inch seam allowance and get the other one out of the way. So lining up this edge, I'm gonna pin. And okay. Alrighty. So once we sew these two things, we're gonna have the real front piece, but we're not gonna have to have wasted all that fabric. So let's go back and we'll add the sewing machine view in case you want to see this. Put my bobbin in, dragged it under, and turn the wheel towards you. So go down, grab your bobbin thread and pull that up. Okay. And there it is. First up. Remember, we cut an extra 1/2 inch seam allowance. So that is what I will sew. a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And same thing over here. So now I've got that sewn on. And now this gets sewn. Okay. And we'll press the seam allowance open here, press the seam allowance open here. And now we're going to jump into the stay stitching. So I'm gonna start with, you have the instructions there, we need to stay stitch. So we need to stay stitch the armhole here. And then we need to stay stitch this entire seam all the way out to the end. And for both of them, we're going to start at the top. So 1/4 inch seam allowance for stay stitching. And you do not need to back stitch. And for 1/4 inch seam allowances on my machine, I line up the fabric with the little inside edge of the foot. So my foot is hanging off the edge. Just open that seam. Okay, doing a lunchtime live stream. Doing a lunchtime live stream. No need to back stitch on that. And we're starting at the top here. So I'm going to flip. It's just easier to go through the machine. All right, there is my stay stitched. One of my, we're going to stay stitch the back, starting again at the top and meeting in the middle. Seems a little picky, but we'll follow the instructions. And starting at the top on the armholes on each side of. Here's the back with one pin left. All right, so in larger form, I'm going to start here and I'm going to sew into the middle. I'm going to start here and sew into the middle. Start here, sew down, start here, sew down. I think I'll start right here. And one last armhole, doing it from the back. Okay, so if you're not familiar with stay stitching, the reason that we do it is because anytime we have a curved edge, we don't want it to stretch out. The stay stitching prevents the armholes and the neck holes from stretching out because they're curved. So they're cut and they're just a little bit more vulnerable to getting stretched out. The stay stitching prevents that. Okay, so now that we've got our stay stitching, we need to put a dart on the front. And I didn't mark it. Let me just cut this thread. I didn't mark it on the when I cut it, but I will right now. So if you forget to mark a dart, just put the piece on your cutting table or wherever and grab the pattern and so it's the opposite way. So what I want to do is you want to find your dart line. Okay, and the dart lines on this are marked in green. If you're following the pattern, they're marked in green because they mark all of their stitching lines in this green, or actually it might be a different color. My printer is acting a little wacky. But anyway, it's a different shade. So you've got to find your line in that shade. Okay, so I'm going to just follow it. And I know that is my line. So there, I'm going to just stick a pin in it. And then what that will do is it'll make a hole on the back. And we want that hole in the back so I can tell where the dart is. So here, my dart there. And then I'm just going to cut 1, 2, so that when I put it onto my fabric, where I just cut, I can go like that and follow the line, and then I can go like that and follow the line, and I will make it a little bit bigger. And there it is. There's my, just stick my pencil through there and see if I can make a dot that I can see later. Not very evident, is it? If it's not, just put that pattern piece back on. Okay, there it is. Make it a little bigger. And then connect your dots to your lines. 1 and 2. So not visible to you. Don't do this at home with a Sharpie. I can make the Sharpie go away when I sew it, but so don't do it. But I wanted you to see where the lines were. So there's the dart, and then as with any dart, you're going to imagine a line right down the middle and then fold it so that your 2 dart lines are on top of each other. You can check by sticking a pin in the front along the line and then making sure that it's hitting the line along the back. and then fold all the way to the apex of the dart, where I usually stick a pin vertically like this, stick another pin vertically like that, and I'm gonna sew, but I think I'm gonna sew on this side so I can start at the outside, work my way in. So let's do that. Just want to make sure that we're going to get both views. I'm pausing because I wanted to see on the, want to make sure you're seeing. Yeah, you are. Okay, sorry about that. All right, sewing on the dart line. Don't forget to backstitch. I'm stuck. On the dart line. And you can bring the stitch length down. I am just going to be very quick about this, and I'm just going to backstitch at the end. I still think it will be okay. All right, there's my dart. And then you've got your excess fabric over here that you just want to go down. You can press that, or as I'm doing, just finger press it. Okay. I am following the instructions as much as I can. And the next one is telling me to add, there's one more tie piece, which I think is hilarious. It's gonna wrap around me like 7 times. Well, not really, but I like to think. So if you haven't cut your tie, like me, you need to do that. Now I need to find it. Interesting. I have lost my tie piece. Oops. It's in here. Here it is. Oh, Monty, you are being the star of the show today, huh? Always, when I start talking to the camera, you think you need to come over. Okay, so here's my tie piece. I need to find the extra fabric. And there are 2 of these. Oh my gosh, this tie is so long. Yeah, and I have not made this before. That's the other part of this beautiful free sewing lesson, is that Megan has never made the project before. So you get me pretty much not knowing what I'm doing. Ah. Okay, I've got this big piece as a scrap. I'm going to be really careful not to cut Monty's tail. Don't worry, I would never do that. And I'm going to cut it on the grain. I'm just going to move you a little bit. There we go. The opposite way. We've got this woven fabric that it wants you to cut this way. The grain line's showing you. There's my selvage. I don't have enough fabric to do that, and I'm okay with doing the tie not on the grain. So I've got this nice long piece right here. I'm sorry, Monty. And I'm going to cut it. I break a lot of rules in sewing. I don't know if I should be teaching you all my rules that I break, but most of the rules that I break are because of fabric. I just want to be able to use the fabric that I have and not have to spend a small fortune on fabric, because fabric's not cheap. So I have this piece that I washed up and I thought it would make a great wrap top. Not big enough, but I'm making it work. Okay, there's my tie. So as you'll see in step 3, we've got to add one more piece to this front piece. We've already patchworked it together, and now we're going to add one more. So right sides together at the edge here. I'm going to pin. You guys get to see what a mess everything is over here. Got this giant mess going. Yeah, change my camera view so you can't see so much of my mess. And then we're sewing this. All right. My front piece is together. Aha. With front right side down, turn back the wrap edge by 6 millimeters or 1/4 of an inch and press it into place. Turn the wrap edge again by another 6 millimeters, this time enclosing the raw edge inside. Press and pin as you work your way along the seam, stitch close. Okay, so basically, in a nutshell, we're hemming this edge. So we've got our gigantic front piece, and we're going to turn that, the whole thing, we're going to turn it under that whole way 2 times and 1/4 inch each time. Okay, so I'm going to flip. And start up here and kind of use your stay stitching as a guide. And press that. Okay, and I am going to press it, I think, because I think pinning it is just going to be really tedious. So I do have an iron, a mini iron that I can show you how to iron it. My IKEA, sorry, Monty, my IKEA mini ironing board, which is a really, really handy thing to have. Just need to plug, oh my goodness, plug it in. Okay. Ooh. Okay, Monty, watch out for the hot iron. Yeah. So here we go. You really do need to press this. So I just want like the very edge to be folded. And as I do it, I'm just pressing it. And because I'm pressing it, it's staying. It like makes such a nice edge. Better than if I were to just pin it. And this seam where we just sewed the tie, press that open. I can press this one open. I only have finger pressed that, but now I can actually press it with the iron. And this is just a wrinkled mess, so I'm just gonna try and get some of that out. Oh my gosh, this piece is endless. Endless, endless. And this is just once. So here's my trick with when I have to fold over 1/4 of an inch. And if I've pressed it, I'm not going to press the second edge. I'm just, as I sew it, going to double the pressed edge. Okay. And actually, I'm going to start out here and bring that over to the sewing machine so you can kind of see here. Okay. So I got my pressed edge. I'm just going to double that and sew it. So this is an interesting experiment. If you'd like to press it, go for it. But I think it's a nice chance to kind of see if you can sew this, well, A, without pins, and B, without pressing that second one, because you can just use the first one to judge how big the second one is. So I'm going to just sew this and I'm going to be quiet. Okay, the trick is to, let me back it up so you can see what I'm doing. So here, you probably want to stop with the needle in and fold over the next section. I'll stop, put my needle in, fold over the next section, keeping it still a very narrow hem. Getting a little wide here. Okay, that's my end. I'm gonna move my ironing board. Move my hot iron out of the way. And let's take a look here. Looks pretty darn good. So see, there is going to be this seam, but because this is like a wrap top, it's like you're not going to notice. Same goes for right here. And there's the other one here. Nobody's going to notice that you've pieced them together. Okay. All right, now we need to take the back facing, which I have not even cut yet either, have I? I think I'm gonna skip that seam or skip that step for now. Well, let's see. How big is that? It's like a matter of finding a piece that's big enough. I think I only need one. Oh, I think I've got enough. All right, that fits. Hallelujah. Okay, let me pin that on there. 1, 2. Oh, Monty. Oops. Monty, you're gonna get cut. Move. Okay, Monty. I'm gonna be careful so I don't cut you. Oh, thank you. So loving. All right, there it is. My back facing. So we want to stay stitch along the neck hole, just like we did on the top, starting here, stop at the middle, starting here, stop at the middle. And then they want you to finish this edge, and you could serge it or stitch and fold. You know what? I am going to serge it just so you all can see what a wonderful thing the serger is. Let me make sure I can actually. Okay, I might have lied. I don't think I'm going to serge it. At least I'm not going to. Yep, I'm not going to serge it. I'm going to fold over this edge and sew. I'm not even going to pin or press. So, little at a time, and just folding and sewing. So we've got a nice finished edge on this facing piece, and then we still have to stay stitch it. So on that side, on the other side, I'm going to do it on the back and knead it in the middle. Okay. So now we've got the facing piece, and the step following is showing us sewing the shoulder seams. So I only have one sewn together, so I'll show you that. And if I have any time left, I will put together another front piece because I haven't done that. But you're going to take first the back. Find your back. There it is. Can't see the whole thing, but for the most part, you can see. These are the armholes. These are the shoulder seams. And take the front that you've finished the edge on and find that shoulder seam. That is not it. There we go. There's my shoulder seam. Okay, so I just wanted to check on the instructions. You're matching up the shoulder seams, but as they mention in the instructions, because you have folded over this edge, it's not going to meet up with the back shoulder seam. So they want you to start at the armhole edge and then have the discrepancy right here. So I'm going to pin that. And sew it. And that is step 6. Okay, so I'm gonna say that for next week, part 2, we're gonna start on step 7 and put the rest of it together. I think we'll have quite a bit to do. But I'm going to end it here because I think I want to put together some of my other front piece. So I'll get this out of the way and get my facing. I'm going to wrap that up in there too. And find the rest of my front pieces. Let's see. There's one of them. There's that long tie. There's that piece. So we puzzle it all back together. I think that actually goes like this. She loves sewing with me. Don't know what's what. There we go. And then this is what goes over here. Okay. So just to start putting together the other side of the front, a little review. Pin that. The tie is going here. Pin that so right sides are touching. I'm just going to pin all sorts of things together. And then we need the big piece. Find that. Oh, look, here it is. You kind of tell because they're all the heights match. So then this goes together with this. We have not put the dart in either, so I need to go back and do that. Right sides facing. Pin it together. Okay, let's sew it. I'll just clear some of this stuff away. Need that. All right. Let's sew that. So everything that I pinned. Here's another pinned spot. Keep everything lined up. Woohoo! Got this whole thing back together. Oh, I'm upside down. There we go. And then this is where the dart goes. So just so you can see that one more time, I will flip. And find my pattern piece again. And this time we can see right side up. And I'm going to mark the dart. So I want one dot here, one line here, and one line. Let's see. Fold the paper up. One line, and one dot. Oh, there's my dot. Fabulous. Grab the ruler. And connect your dot to the, so the dot is your apex. And connect those to the other lines of the dart to form this lovely triangle. And pretend there's a line in the middle of your dart and fold it on that line. Make sure the lines of your dart are perfectly lined up. Oh gosh, they are not lined up at all. You see that? It's right here. So I need to refold. That's why that is such a good little trick. So my lines of my dart should be on top of each other. Let's see. Almost. Better, huh, Monty? Let me just get a load of this. Just all over me. It's because he wants to go outside and I won't let him right now. It's buttering up. We get it? Yes. There we go. So once again, I always pin at the apex of the dart and then one more. And then I'll sew that and we'll call it a day. I'm gonna have to catch up a little bit before next week's part 2. Oh, Monty. All right, I'll do this dart the right way this time. So as I approach, zoom in a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. As I approach the apex, I'm going to bring the stitch length down so that it gets really small right at the end of the dart. It's like barely moving through. And that way you don't have to backstitch, and it gives you a little bit more accurate of this point right here. You can see that. All right, I've got all kinds of wires everywhere because of my iron, I think, and all the other technical things. But Monty and I just wanted to say goodbye and thank you for watching. And don't forget to watch the next one, part 2. As soon as part 2 happens, I'll add a link to it in the show notes below. But if you're watching it live, you'll have to wait till next week.